Hello and welcome. We are so excited to welcome you to Living Cities Earth Experience. Please enjoy the next few minutes, and we hope that this video and the ideas from our speakers will change your life to the better. Listen carefully. What particularly talks to you? What might have a chance to change your life and lives of people around you? Also, life of your place and our planet. We believe that you, the leaders of positive change, are those who define the future. So let's work together. And thank you for coming. Welcome. Well, everybody, we invite you to switch on your cameras. Wherever you are, we had some beautiful discussions today with one speaker being in South Africa, another one being in North Europe, another one in South Europe, in Eastern Europe, in North America, in South America. So some came from Asia. So really participants and speakers from all over the globe. And tomorrow we have what we call, it's funny that tomorrow we have an international day. The whole event is global, but tomorrow we have an international day in the sense that we'll have speakers speaking not in English, but in their native languages. We will have presentations in Norwegian and Azeri and Turkish and Russian and Ukrainian and many, many other languages. So it's Chinese, Hindi, and so on and so forth. So today is our main day, Earth Day, and Marilyn Hamilton, thank you very much for being really a powerful force behind not only this session and the beautiful interview with Jude, but behind all of the Earth Day Summit, as well as the Living Cities Earth, the Integral City, and many other projects you are engaged with. We are really happy and sort of privileged to have you today as our keynote speaker. When we spoke with you and we asked whether you would agree to do the speech today, we had a clear sort of, speaking to each other, the organizers of this event, we had a clear understanding that you are exactly the person who could give a fundamental perspective on what are we talking about, the living cities, what is it as a concept, how could it be implemented in practice, and we appreciate your time because you bring to us wealth of experience. And as we learned from your conversation with Jude, it's not only about linear time experience, right? It's about more multidimensional experience of this living universe. So I'll cut my introduction and I pass it on to you. We know that you pre-recorded a beautiful video and we'll have it and we'll share it, of course, with everybody. But if you have energy and desire, we would love to hear you speaking live. So Marilyn, on to you from beautiful Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you, Lev. And yes, of course, I will give us a live keynote. Thank you very much. I had that recorded one as plan B, but it looks like everything is working, so we'll just go live. And Lev, I just want to add for our audience that not only did you ask me to speak about living cities, but you asked me to explore the theme of happiness, which is what we are using as an overarching theme for our whole summit. So what I want to share with you today is some thoughts on weaving a field of happiness in the living city. I've made some slides. I'm going to share them. So I hope you can see the slides. Yes. And thank you. And let's just start with a question. What is happiness? Happiness, I think, is a state of consciousness. It's felt as a sense of well-being that one experiences as buoyancy, optimism, positivity, and openness. One feels life is worth living, that one can cope with the challenges in one's life, and even that all is right with the world. Happiness is attractive to others, drawing others closer to you, and it is also contagious, able to be transmitted to others like a vibrational frequency. Happiness emerges from one's self-sense, both in relation to and despite the life conditions one finds oneself experiencing. In that respect, happiness is subjective. It arises as an inner awareness of our I, often implicitly, or perhaps, as David Bohm might say, implicately, like its essence is contained as a flower bud. But when the bud of happiness opens and blooms as our I, the fragrance and beauty of happiness becomes available to others. In those moments, happiness becomes intersubjective. Our I expands into a we who can reflect and amplify happiness between and amongst each I as a collection of others or as a collective experience. Not only one flower blooms, but many do. And it is possible, as we've been saying in other explorations today, it's possible for a whole garden of happiness to burst forth. A feeling of happiness arises in the present moment. One can remember past happinesses and even use that experience to platform current happiness. One can also intend to be happy in the future, but the actual felt sense of happiness belongs to the now. Happiness arises out of the realm of love. To be happy gives one a sense of being surrounded by love, able to act as lover of others, and to be open to receive love as the beloved. Love acts like an underlying platform, a foundation or soil from which happiness can sprout forth. Even in the direst circumstances, if one can tap into the realm of love, which includes gratitude and appreciation for life, connecting to an invigorating, pleasing sense of aliveness, the state of happiness may be attained. Happiness can feel as simple as a taste of deliciousness. But the magic of happiness is that it arises through the alchemy of resonance, coherence, and emergence. When one is happy, one resonates in four realms: the subjective I, the intersubjective we, the objective it, and the interobjective its. As one radiates happiness from the subjective self, the objective self reflects this experience with visible smiles, relaxing of the shoulders, opening of the heart chakra, the extending of arms, even swaying of the body. A whole lightness of being that can inspire song, dance, and all acts of creativity. With both subjective and objective expressions of one's happy state resonating with each other in a feedback loop, one naturally resonates with similar vibrations in one's surroundings, including other beings, seen and unseen, and the built environment, nature, and life in general. Thus, our happiness resonates with the intersubjective and interobjective realities of our personal aliveness and shared life circumstances. If happiness has the quality of resonance, how does coherence emerge? Coherence arises from the resonance of our personal inner and outer life with the inner and outer lives of others. As we sense a reflection of our state of happiness in others, we respond to the amplification of our resonance with more happiness and reflect back the state of happiness from others to ourselves. Thus, resonance encourages coherence, and the state of personal happiness aligns with the state of others' happiness, expanding the field of happiness into a coherent whole. In heightened conditions, this coherent state can even become super coherent, which enables the emergence of greater complexity. From a collective of resonating individuals, coherence can emerge a field of shared resonance that may be momentary, or with repeated deep practice, may become a community of shared states, and in time, even a community of shared values, agreements, structures, systems, and stages. Thus, the state of happiness has the potential to seed a stage of complexity and even an evolutionary trajectory of happiness that progresses through increasingly complex stages of personal and collective resonance, coherence, and emergence. As resonance stimulates coherence, and together they catalyze emergence, patterns of happiness can emerge in both individual and collective lives. As life has the habit of emerging in fractal patterns, as Jude Currivan was just saying, happiness too expresses as repeating patterns that reveal themselves in expanding scales of expression. With the frames of love embracing our experience of happiness, we can start to discern that happiness has the potential to expand increasing circles of care. We have called these circles of care in Integral City Gaia's Code of Care. We have introduced it as a Care Ma Yoga because the circles expand. As they expand, they enable ever more complex expressions of care and love. By caring for self, we grow the capacities to care for others. Caring together as self and others, we can create the capacities to care for place. And all together as self, others, and places, we can create the capacities to care for the planet. Each of these heart-based circles of care is a fractal arising from the expression of care through resonance, coherence, and emergence. The source of that care may arise from different triggers. For example, economic challenges or tensions like personal conflict or even cultural war, or origins like natural causes like climate change or an earthquake. But when care is expressed, the opportunity to feel happiness arises. The felt sense of happiness, in turn, reinforces the fractal pattern of care. In turn, the expression of care deepens the experience of happiness. This deepening arises as a form of complexity and maturity, so that when one experiences the happiness of self in one's early life, the pleasure of the feeling is overwhelmingly egocentric. However, when one matures through natural development and/or the challenges of life conditions, care for others expands and deepens one's sense of happiness. The egocentricity of self-caring happiness releases into an ethnocentricity of happiness in caring for others. And thus the shared resonance, coherence, and emergence expands to clan, tribe, culture, and when our human systems evolve into shared habitats, into communities, villages, cities, and nations. At this stage of evolution, we become conscious of caring for place, which expands our field of life into places that we name villages, cities, and nations. Our happiness then has the potential to deepen into shared celebrations, artistic and cultural expressions, spiritual rituals, food growing preparation and consuming, and all the ways that humans enable collectives to live equitably together. The happiness of Diwali, or Christmas, or Thanksgiving, or Eid becomes palpable and energizing. Ironically, in our modern world, these celebrations have become invaded by unhappiness, a virus of false needs, consumption temptations, and the pursuit of wealth disconnected from the values of life, which has perverted our natural capacity for happiness with false comparisons, envy, and striving. And this is breeding unhappiness on generational and cultural scales that are even now appearing to be further threatened by artificial intelligence, AI, and its capacity for amplifying connections of both false and incoherent kinds. However, if we follow the natural unfolding of complexity in considering the circles of care, we evolve from the place-centric scale of happiness into the scale of the planet itself. We can discover in ourselves a planet-sized response of love for our planet that reflects the planet's very love for the human she has evolved. This planetary circle of care elicits a planet-sized experience of happiness. This happiness is deep and broad and high and wide, and it arises from all the prior circles of care, of place, others, and self, as it embraces the planet herself. This depth of feeling, of experience that is planet-sized, reveals the fractal of happiness that literally bursts upon the heart beyond individuals, collectives, and places to feel the planet's subjective delight in her evolutionary manifestation of humans, who, as Gaia's reflective beings, that's what James Lovelock called us, as Gaia's reflective beings, we can express her happiness as a deep feeling. If you just heard Jude Currivan speaking, she resonated this pattern with her invocation that we are called to think cosmically, feel globally, and act locally. Thus, the subjective, intersubjective sense of our planet is called through the experience or feeling. And I would propose that feeling that most resonates with this pattern is happiness. Furthermore, this deep happiness enables deep caring. Because if we truly feel Gaia's aliveness, then we become aware of how our human actions have caused her pain, pollution and toxicity, and even, as Charles Eisenstein is saying, organ failure. It may also explain the deep unhappiness that pervades the world, depressing youth and traumatizing all generations. For the planet that has birthed us has not been cared for by the species that has most changed her. To recover the conditions for deep happiness, we're called to act locally to restore, heal, and regenerate, to care at all levels of scale, and thus reopen the doors to happiness at all scales. Now, we looked at the realms of happiness, and I'd like to just speak about what do we see when we look within each realm? I think that within each realm of happiness, there are many potential lines of happiness. Wilber and others have estimated that at least 24 lines of reality can be associated with each realm. Here are just a few where lines of happiness can be observed. The subjective realm can experience happiness aesthetically. We enjoy this through the experience of all manifestations of beauty, the arts. The intersubjective realm of we, there we can relate to happiness culturally through relationships shared in cultural expressions of sacred dance, language, food, clothing, housing, parenting, learning. The objective realm of it can express happiness biophysically through the joy of biophysical wellness, health in body, healthy mind, strength, agility, form, balance, well-being. And the interobjective realm, the its, can co-create happiness systemically through structures, infrastructures, communication systems, transportation and distribution systems, and collective designs. So with all those possible lines of happiness, how does life conditions impact the possibilities and likelihood of happiness? Claire Graves, who was behind the spiral dynamics research, proposed that humans develop along a trajectory of progressively complex capacities. He described a double helix where individual and cultural development were intertwined with the life conditions, which were comprised of all the influences from climate, geography, ecology, history, culture, etc. Elsewhere, I have even explored the possibility of a triple helix where feminine is intertwined with masculine and both with life conditions. But for today, we'll stick with the double helix. Graves described these life conditions through his own system of referencing, where he used the first letter to indicate the person's capacity, and the second referred to the life conditions. So you can see, as I've noted on the screen, it went A, N, B, O, C, P, D, Q, E, R, F, S, G, T, H, U, I always did like that he ended up on the 8th level with HU, which stands for human, of course, humaning well. So he described in his research 8 levels, but he knew that that was not the end, that it was a never-ending quest. Nevertheless, I would say that each of the levels brings forth another aspect of happiness that we should consider, and that is in regard to change. So between each of the levels, there was a change curve that he and the spiral dynamics authors went on to label as alpha, beta, gamma, delta, nu alpha. And now this is popularized, this change curve, through slightly different terminology than this, in many other theories, including Adiz's corporate life cycles, Sharma's U theory, Keegan's change model, and one that many people know, Kubler-Ross's grief cycle. And I also would say even the Three Horizons model. Now, the stages of change can be correlated to the states of happiness because each of the stages emerges from tensions that vibrate at different states of coherence. Alpha and nu alpha are likely the happiest stages in the change curve because the human, whether individual or collective, is well aligned with their context. And each of these stages has a sound, which I've always found quite fascinating and gives me the indication of any particular set of collectives or humans together. What's the sound I hear in the room? So here are the sounds that I associate with these stages. The sound of alpha is a very happy one. It goes, it's humming along because everything is right with the world. Now, happiness becomes more difficult at beta because their life conditions shift the context of the person's capacity for responding effectively. And naturally, out of this emerge tensions. And you can hear an audible, uh-oh, things are not the same. The beta stage is characterized by the sense that something is not quite right. We ask, how can we get back to alpha? So beta can be periodically happy when possibilities exist for the return to alpha, but equally quickly can disappear when one is forced down the uncertain curve of change to the stage of gamma, where unhappiness tends to abound because of the VUCA conditions of life, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. The sound here can be, oh, damn. Nothing is certain or clear, and everything seems to be changing all the time. If the change situation devolves into a gamma trap, where the sound darkens into, oh shit, then it is very difficult to find happiness in individuals or collectives who feel themselves with no good options. Instead of happiness, the feeling will likely be of fear, intimidation, anger, worry, despair, depression, the very antithesis of happiness. Few people are happy when faced with a shift that is not only seemingly unmanageable, what Graves called a gamma trap, but which is a real-life threat, the stark opposite of a happy state. Until the individual can learn a new path out of gamma or the gamma trap into delta, the state of happiness will be elusive. But when the discovery is made that removes the block and reopens the flow of change, the surge of joy and happiness can be so strong that it is experienced as elation with commensurate sounds of wow and bodily freedom as the weight of gamma is removed from life. After the surge of release, the new learning in delta must be consolidated and integrated, transcending into a new stage that at its most coherent recalibrates all earlier stages and includes them in a new understanding of the world. In this final act of stage development, the change experience has come full cycle into a new alpha, and the sound we hear is once again, Happiness once more is in the air. In the fabric of happiness, the rhythms and cycles of change are constantly flowing from and between individuals and groups, adding textures of discernment and healing to the four realms of biopsychocultural systems realities. and the circles of care that embrace and elicit happiness. Another factor that impacts a person's capacity to make the journeys of change that may be wired into their DNA and cultural makeup is whether a person prefers change of the first or second order. First order change is transactional, one small step at a time. And most people can negotiate these smaller stair steps of change and hold on to some vestige of happiness. Those individuals, and sometimes cultures, who prefer second order change that is revolutionary and transformational, often sudden and unexpected change, can experience a surge of happiness from the very gamma trap conditions that stymie others. These people can work in hospital acute care wards, fire departments, and emergency response teams, where the high adrenaline demands of these situations call forth surges of happy, high performance in these people. Humans have designed special conditions, actually, to view such performances as entertainment in sports and athletics, probably films, where second order happiness can be constructed for audience safe in their first order seats. In a living city, happiness is dynamically alive, arising from all four realms of I, we, it, its, simultaneously in multiple circles of care and nested interlocking change curves and types of change preferences that flow through individuals and collectives simultaneously. And with so many influences on happiness, many of which seem to originate outside one's control, it may seem that happiness can only unpredictably and even accidentally arise. As the human condition is becoming increasingly explored, though, by science and spiritual research in all four realms, all levels of complexity, the stages of change and respondent types of change, it is not difficult to appreciate that happiness itself is being parsed into ever finer calibrations of biopsychocultural social determinants. At the same time, we are discerning that appreciating the whole calls forth yet another perspective of happiness, not only as a fractal, but as a hologram. We can appreciate that happiness is a state that lives at many levels of existence. Spiritual practices that enable presencing, holding, and transcendent awareness enable us to experience happiness in short spurts, but also in ever wider circles of care and longer times of endurance. Moreover, the exploration of the relationship of happiness to health and harmony shows us that happiness is not just a nice to have condition of life, but a necessary condition for the evolution of humans to be in service to all life on our planet. Research shows that one can choose happiness. One can build the capacity to be resilient to life conditions, agile in the face of challenges, and buoyant in the waves of change that are natural to our living planet. As we examine the lives of leaders who have developed capacity to lead to what I call the power of 8, we see that they invest in practices that strengthen their capacities to respond to our VUCA world. The experiences of happiness arise then both in its local experience, visible by others, and also in non-local experience, which links happiness to global impacts when we consider that our individual happiness can reach to others, far places, and across the globe. If nothing else, this has become visible on Zoom during the planet's first global lockdown, and as we continue to do our conferences on Zoom, and throughout the social media. So the practice of choosing happiness becomes a self-rewarding practice of aliveness. Practicing care ma yoga to care for self, others, places, and planet links us to the local, the planet, and cosmic forces of life. And the emergence of communities of happiness, researched by Marina Demchenko and forthcoming in our new e-journal, may be a testament to the power of happiness to enable survival, adaptation to our environment, and the regeneration of life, because it demonstrates and rewards the virtues of aliveness in such a deeply personal way. While there are potentially as many practices or variations thereof as there are people, ultimately, the practice of Karma Yoga builds capacity for all realms, levels of complexity, and stages of change. By practicing daily the care for self, others, places, and planet, then we weave a field of happiness that is optimally obtainable, not only for individuals, but for whole communities. And you'll see in our new e-journal an article by Angelika Bohonitzer, which explores further the communities of happiness that have sprung up all around the globe. So, is it possible for us to consider that we could weave happiness into health and harmony in the living city? Ultimately, the pursuit of happiness transcends ego, ethno, and eco-regional boundaries, and through spiritual practice may not only embrace the globe, but whole cosmic realms. As we weave happiness locally, we co-create a field of happiness that can be shared locally and non-locally, contributing to the morphogenetic field of the human species. As transmitters of happiness, we also become receivers of happiness from a field to which others have contributed through resonance, coherence, and emergence. And with such life-enhancing positive energies, our happiness weaves itself into health and harmony within individuals, their local cities, and across a whole planet of living cities. Thank you.
Marian, thank you so much. It was so fundamental and so structured. I was having my daughter here. We were listening together. And as always, every time some experts from Living Cities Earth are speaking, she gets quiet and she starts listening. So she's 2 weeks old. So I think it's a good sign that we are relevant for the future generations. Marian, thank you so much. And I pass it on to Alexander to share a couple of his comments, maybe a couple of questions before we move to our group discussion. Alexander?
What can I say, Marilyn? I mean, this is beautiful. And to all of us who are here, I think this is really part of that master code of care that you embody. That's so beautiful, because it's nice to be able to think about this in a concrete way rather than just the concepts and the ideas. You can think about, master code, I'm thinking about Marilyn. So that's so nice, because your presentation was so clear. Yes, I agree, structured, but also clear. And it's also the kind of clarity which speaks to the heart, I feel. It's not the clarity just in terms of the concepts, and this is what we have to do in a very abstract way, but it's really about humaning well. And I just wanted to say thank you, because that and the previous conversation that you had with Jude, even though it was recorded, it came through very much alive. And again, all of this is about building a resonant field. And this is what we're doing here. Indeed, you can almost feel the community as it surrounds us in our interbeing. And it comes through very much because of the space that you create, Marilyn. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Alexander. That means a lot to me. And I learned so much from you, especially coining the term humaning well means very much to me. And I think aligns beautifully with how I understand that Gaia is evolving us. And I think that she really appreciates the whole intention for us to human well for all life. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Gaia. Yeah, I like that idea. I somehow think that we need to have Gaias and Girlas. I don't know. Maybe that didn't work well. Yes, indeed. We need actually the huge framing that comes from the feminine. This is core. So again, thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, thank you. Checking in now because let's take 1 minute of a pause. And then in this minute, we get to go refresh a little bit, and we'll be back for our next session, which is going to be starting now. The minute's already up, but we'll take another minute. We'll look at the little video of our Earth Day engagement here. And just to give you the anticipation, our framing is going to be on the second round, since we did this yesterday as well. Now, this is the second time, and we're going to do it at a deeper level of exploration. How could we create 1,000 happy, flourishing, thriving cities together? And it's going to be a spirited discussion among some of those who are most active in this. We have 7 beautiful panelists who will be joining us in 1 minute. See you then.
Wow, you have made it. You just watched amazing insights from experts of Living Cities Earth ecosystem. We welcome you to the Living Cities Earth experience and hope that we are going for a long ride as we take care of ourselves, our communities, our cities, and our planet. Thank you and welcome.